Spider-Man is very important to me. I don't really know where I would be as a person if it wasn't for Spider-Man. I don't think I would be half the person I am without that character. Now, obviously it's a character, that world is fictional, but as a kid, Spider-Man meant so much to me. Being able to see these movies, shows, and video games was very special to me, and I grew up playing Spider-Man, watching Spider-Man, talking Spider-Man so much as a kid. I mean, every year for Halloween, I dressed up as Spider-Man. I talked Spider-Man all the time. Spider-Man was my all-time favorite thing. You would see me sleeping in Spider-Man stuff, having every Spider-Man possible thing possible out there. Spider-Man birthday parties, Spider-Man everything. I love Spider-Man and still do love Spider-Man. I mean, listen, I still sleep in a Spider-Man blanket and pillow with a pillow pet that I've used for 10 years. If anyone has another Spider-Man pillow pet, please email me. I need one of those. I'll buy it off of you. So Spider-Man's very special to me, and it's so special to me that I'm actually breaking a rule on this channel and talking about something that's not Nintendo. So today, we are going to be talking about Marvel's Spider-Man 2. So obviously, major spoilers ahead. We're going to be talking some major spoilers. So if you've not beaten the game, click off the video right now. Now, my favorite video game of all time is Spider-Man Web of Shadows. I love this game so much because of what this game did for just the Spider-Man character and how far it took Spider-Man. Because we would have never gotten a game like this, and in all honesty, we still will never get a game like Spider-Man Web of Shadows in terms of how dark it went. And the originality of Web of Shadows is still so original because this is stuff that the comics didn't even really do. Now the comics have, but Web of Shadows did a lot of this stuff first, which is a zombie symbiote apocalypse where we're seeing some of Marvel's most popular heroes get taken by the symbiote, like Wolverine, for example. Now, obviously, like that game started that. This game right here. Now, there's the whole Venomverse comic. We see so many symbiotic designs of Marvel characters. It's such a common thing now. But Web of Shadows was the first game to do that, and especially with how dark it got. I mean, the things that you can do with this game in terms of its choices, which again, to have a game, this game came out in 2008, holds up amazing to this day still. And to have the amount of choices that it did and how dark, like for example, you can literally, if you go with a bad ending, you can get Wolverine, you can take his body and twist it in half. You'll never see that happen nowadays, especially since they're owned by Disney. They don't go as dark as this game does. This is probably the darkest we have seen Marvel go. And we really haven't seen the symbiote used in a Spider-Man game, at least for it being the main part of the story, since Spider-Man Web of Shadows, which was 2008. So I have been waiting for a game to use the symbiote. We've obviously had games like Edge of Time, Shattered Dimensions. You could play like a symbiote Spider-Man. You had Anti-Venom there. I don't count that because that wasn't the main storyline behind the game. Spider-Man 2? Haha, well, Spider-Man 2 definitely uses the symbiote, and it's definitely the main plot of the game. You know, I actually wasn't the craziest fan of Spider-Man PS4, the first one that Insomniac made. I thought it was a really good game, but I never thought it was better than Web of Shadows. I've always been defending Web of Shadows as the best Spider-Man game. But when I saw the credits scene where they were showing us Harry Osborn, symbiote, all that type of stuff, I was like, ooh, Insomniac might be cooking here, because that, you know, that's what I love. I love the symbiote, I love Venom, I love Spider-Man. I think anything with Spider-Man and Venom in the same game, same main plot storyline, I think is crazy. It's so cool. I kind of low-key like Spider-Man 3. I know that's a very controversial take, but I think there's some pretty iconic scenes in Spider-Man 3. It's got problems, but there's some really cool scenes in Spider-Man 3, okay? But I was never too crazy about Spider-Man PS4. I thought it was really good. I thought Insomniac did a great job. I was going to play the series going forward. Then we had Miles Morales that I thought did what Spider-Man PS4 did way better. I thought Miles Morales was a 20 times better game than Spider-Man PS4. I loved the Miles Morales game, and it got me even more excited for Spider-Man 2 whenever that came out. And here we are, 2023, we finally got Spider-Man 2, and man, oh man, I have so much to say about Spider-Man 2. Man, I have been so excited for Spider-Man 2 because of all the things they have shown this year with this game. I knew this was going to be such a good game, and I just didn't know how good it was going to be. I didn't think it had a chance of competing against Spider-Man Web of Shadows, but I thought it still was going to be a very good game. So, when I got this game at the midnight release, I actually played this over Mario Wonder, which is going to surprise people since I'm a Nintendo channel, but I had to play this game. And immediately as you press the start button, you are jumped into this game. They show you a little cutscene of Harry getting the symbiote, of how it's all going to go down. And then you're jumped right into Peter and Miles' story, where Peter's in class trying to do his job. He's starting his new job as a student teacher. Unfortunately, doesn't work out as well for him because when he shows up to the job, he's pretty late. I don't know how late, but he's late. And as he's doing the class, Miles looks to the window and he sees Sandman going his way. And you are immediately jumping in as playing as Spider-Man and Miles Morales Spider-Man going against the Sandman. Which I think is so cool because you are chasing Sandman together as a team, which I think is so cool that we're seeing Peter mentor Miles throughout this game, because we saw a little of that in Miles Morales' game, but we didn't see enough of it because Peter was just there for a few minutes because he had his little vacation trip with MJ. And man, this Sandman chase scene, this was incredible to play. This was probably one of the best openings to a Spider-Man game, up there with Web of Shadows, with how Web of Shadows opens up. I think that game opens up amazingly, just like Spider-Man 2. Not to mention, when you're doing the Sandman chase scene, you're immediately jumped into a Sandman boss fight, and this boss fight literally shows how far you can go with the PlayStation 5. Insomniac Games has used this hardware to its absolute limit. I feel like they're the only studio out there to really use the PlayStation 5's limits to the limits. They have really utilized that SSD drive because none of these first-party Sony companies, I feel like, have really utilized that. And we have seen them. I want to say they're taking the PlayStation 5 to the limits, but there's probably more that they could do with the PlayStation 5 that we don't even realize yet. And it is so cool because you're jumping from Peter and Miles throughout this boss fight. You guys are doing a teamwork battle. I think it is so cool and just shows the student being Miles and the teacher being Peter. The duo, it just works great, and the boss fight is so freaking cool. One of the reasons why I love Spider-Man is because Spider-Man shows that even as a hero, your life isn't perfect. And, I think sometimes, back in the day at least, a lot of people looked at that as, you have the perfect life. I think that's what civilians in this world looked as Spider-Man. They have the perfect life. And as you can see throughout this whole game, as you play as Peter and Miles, that as they are both Spider-Man, they struggle being Spider-Man and struggle with their real life problems. And I think it's so cool to see a game do this, let alone see a character do this, because Spider-Man has always been like this. It's not just the game. It's just we get to see it more utilized in the game because it's a longer source of media, basically. And to see how we are playing as these characters, seeing them struggle throughout the whole game, this game does it perfectly, man. I love how throughout the whole game, Miles is trying to write this college essay, but he's struggling to write the college essay because he's struggling to be Spider-Man at the same time, and he doesn't know what to write because all of his life he's been doing the Spider-Man stuff. He doesn't get to really hang out with his friends as much, and you see this with Miles' love life too, because he'll be running away from Haley to be Spider-Man, and you can see it's affecting the relationships just in the same form that it affects Peter and MJ's relationship when Peter has to run away and be Spider-Man. My whole point is, I think it's incredible to see this being used to showing that it's not perfect. A perfect person does not exist, even with all these superpowers and all that stuff. This game really captures that perfectly. Now, at one point, I had read every Spider-Man Miles Morales comic out there. Obviously, that has not happened, but now, because I am way too busy but I read every Ultimate Spider-Man issue. I've read every Miles Morales issue that came out. I was very big into these characters, specifically the Ultimate Universe. And one of the things that I like that we saw with some of the newer Spider-Man comics is we saw Peter Parker sort of start to be a mentor to Miles Morales, but it never got fully utilized because there was just so much going on in these universes that it just didn't really happen the way that I wanted it to happen, basically. And with the Insomniacs' take of Spider-Man, we get to see Peter mentor Miles throughout this whole game, and even in some stages see Miles kind of mentor Peter in some forms also. And I think that is one of my favorite parts of this game, because the originality that we're seeing here throughout the whole game, man, I think it's so cool. Just to the fact that we're seeing Peter Parker see Miles Morales' early days as Spider-Man together like that, and we see this happen throughout the whole game. The cool thing behind this Peter and Miles relationship of being a mentor, I think, is really cool because it does something that we've not seen happen in the comics, which is Peter has been there since day one of Miles Morales, even before being Spider-Man or getting bit by that spider. So Peter's already had a relationship with Miles before this whole thing happens. That didn't happen in the comics. And as soon as Miles gets bit, he later tells Peter, before he even becomes Spider-Man, Miles becomes Spider-Man, he tells Peter, hey, I got bit, I don't know what to do. And then that's when he finds out, oh my gosh, Peter Parker's actually Spider-Man 2. This opens the door to so many cool things throughout Spider-Man 2 that you would not see happen in the comic books, and the whole game you're seeing that happen. And I think it's so cool, especially considering some of the boss fights that are happening later in the fight, that you see that relationship of Peter and Miles really be important later in the game. Speaking of moments that you can really feel, we gotta talk about Peter Parker and Harry Osborn's relationship in this game, because Insomniac did such an incredible job of making you feel that relationship, building that relationship, and showing flashbacks perfectly. With Harry Osborn, you get to see him in the beginning of the game, and then you don't see him anymore until Peter shows up to Aunt May's house, which is also really cool, going to Aunt May's house, because you get this really awesome flashback scene of Peter Parker finding balance and Aunt May helping him with balance. It's just really great and really wholesome. It was cool to see this happen because I wasn't expecting a little Aunt May cameo scene, and they made an Aunt May cameo scene happen, and it makes sense to happen. It wasn't forced in. And it was also just such a powerful scene with learning the balance stuff that Aunt May was saying. It was just really cool, really incredible. And by the way, it's really cool with Yuri doing that, because you can kind of really hear Ben 10 very well when he's doing the young Peter voice. But later, after all these scenes of Peter being at Aunt May's house, reliving Aunt May's moments, all that stuff, getting that bill where he's freaking out over how much money's left on the mortgage and all that stuff, Harry shows up to the house, and you can see how happy both MJ and Peter are, and you can feel it. You can literally see it. And this is why I love video games, because a lot of people don't think video games can really make you feel things, because it's video games. And the acting, this is where the acting comes into play. Everybody on Spider-Man 2, the acting team, they did such an incredible job, because man, you felt these moments throughout the whole game. And when MJ leaves, Harry and Peter, they go on a bicycle, and they're going through the whole New York. They're reliving their moments of basically going through the school, all that they did, stuff they shouldn't have been doing, all that, them talking about that. It was so cool. It felt awesome. I don't know how to describe it, but it was something I never felt playing a Spider-Man game before. And I loved seeing this in the game of these moments, especially because you get to see the early ages of Spider-Man, because the Insomniac version of Spider-Man, at least in the first game, we didn't get to really see any of that, because this Spider-Man has been Spider-Man for like 10 plus years already. So this was an incredible moment that Insomniac did, and I love what they did with Peter and Harry's relationship throughout the whole Spider-Man 2 game. Especially considering that they've been building up this whole relationship with Peter and Harry since the first Spider-Man game, because Peter's going through all of Harry's, I guess you call it, work stop stations in the first Spider-Man game, It's really cool, and I loved it. Eventually, you find out that Harry has the symbiote in the storyline, and Peter just goes to Harry, is like, hey, I'm Spider-Man, and they're like, oh my gosh, da 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 da. And later on in the story, Harry teams up with Spidey to save Tombstone, which is actually pretty cool seeing the Tombstone redemption story arc where he's not really a villain anymore. And this is going to be something that we're going to talk about later throughout the game about redemption storylines, because this game does that incredibly awesome. But one of the things I think it's really cool about this story mission where you're saving Tombstone is Harry teams up with you and literally is wearing an Agent Venom suit. This is an awesome Easter egg that I was not expecting, let alone I did not expect to see Harry be teaming up with us. I did not expect that at all, let alone seeing Agent Venom. Would have been cool if they would have made that like a suit that you could unlock in the game. But you're saying in this mission, Harry become more muscular and removing all of these this Agent Venom suit. He's like removing all the like extra armor pieces because he's actually gaining the muscle. It was really cool because you're seeing the symbiote grow towards Harry, and then the symbiote's trying to get towards Peter, and then at one point it does get Peter, and then he gets the symbol sort of. It was really cool, a really cool mission, and just that whole Agent Venom Easter egg was so cool that I know not many people realized, and just very unexpected to see the team up stuff. We've seen the team up stuff happen throughout this whole Spider-Man 2 game, and I think Insomniac is really testing that, because I think it's possible we're gonna get a Spider-Man multiplayer or some sort of Marvel multiplayer game down the road. This is like years later, but they're really testing this, I feel, with how throughout the whole game, side missions, all that, how some of the stuff that you can do with the team up scene, I think you're going to be seeing more of that utilized, and I am very excited to see what they do with that. I want to talk about Marvel's trust with Insomniac games, because some of the things that are happening in Spider-Man 2's story, I know shows just how much Marvel trusts Insomniac, because I know so many people that have done Marvel games, comic books, they were not allowed to do certain things, and to see Insomniac have the capabilities of killing Scorpion, Vulture, Shocker, and potentially Rhino, that there's this whole thing in the game where it shows that he's dead, but this is not official, because there was this whole thing where if you did this glitch, you could see this throne room, and Kraven's got the heads of Scorpion, Rhino. We never saw Rhino die, and we never saw Rhino in the game in general, so there's speculation that Rhino might be dead. My whole point is, for Marvel to allow this to happen where they're killing some pretty key villains to Spider-Man. I mean, I feel like Electro is a pretty key villain, and I mean, I guess there's some that they definitely were never going to do, but anything with after the last Spider-Man game, but that's half of the Sinister Six that they just killed. So I'm very impressed that Insomniac did that. And it sucks, I guess, if you're a fan of those characters, but I loved it because it shows that they're going all in. They do not care. For Kraven to be the one to do it, I think is pretty cool, because Kraven is out there trying to find a challenge. That storyline is really cool, seeing be put into Spider-Man 2. I love it, and they did Kraven's introduction in this game perfect. Kraven's inclusion of this game with the symbiote, I was kind of a little worried, because I was like, they might be doing a little bit too many storylines here. But Kraven being in this game with the symbiote worked so perfect. Like, I literally could not imagine anything more perfect than what we got here storyline wise. So after we're done with this whole Tombstone level, we jumped over to MJ's story, where MJ, there is some really amazing MJ levels in this game. You know, I felt that MJ levels from the last Spider-Man game, I thought they were alright. I think those levels in the first game got a little bit too much hate, because there really wasn't many MJ missions out there, and when they were MJ missions, they were pretty short. I feel like it was different, it was cool, it was something that was never done before. I was a fan of it. And I guess Insomniac saw how fans hated it and did their best to make them more interesting. And Insomniac made the MJ missions incredible. Let me just say, oh my gosh. These levels were incredible. I wish we had a lot more MJ missions in this game. But at one point, you're in a zoo and you are literally knocking Kraven's minions, whatever you want to call them. You're knocking them out with a taser. Like, MJ's can like take arrows. Like, they made MJ OP in this game. She could take like 3 arrows. She's got like Sable training from Silver Sable. It was crazy. It was so cool using this taser. It made some from pretty unique levels, in all honesty, especially that zoo level, because I don't know, I thought it was cool because you're out there trying to save Kurt Connors, who is the Lizard, before they try to make him Lizard, and MJ does, but then fails because Kraven shows up at the end. It doesn't work out, but basically, after all this happens, you jump into Spider-Man again, because they're back at the zoo trying to save MJ and Connors. Because Connors knows a lot about the symbiote, and they need to save Connors because Connors has gone missing due to Kraven going after him. Basically, that's what MJ's whole mission was, and then they find MJ, and then Spidey and Agent Venom defeating Kraven's goons. And then after they do all that, Kraven shows out of nowhere after injecting Kurt Connors with the Lizard serum. He becomes the Lizard. It was really cool seeing Kurt Connors with the original Lizard design, because it's the only time we see it in the game, but he's wearing the suit in Lizard form. It was really cool. He goes away. They're trying to save Lizard. It doesn't work out. They go somewhere else. And then Spidey's fighting Kraven, and then Kraven pulls out this knife, stabs, like literally puts the knife inside of Spider-Man, and Kraven's like, what a joke. You're easy, that type of stuff. It was actually kind of cold, kind of fire at the same time that he did that, though, because he walks off, and then you're seeing Spider-Man die, and you're seeing MJ and Harry, or MJ's actually walking Peter to like a safe place to try to help him, try to save him. And then Agent Venom as Harry, he's going after all these goons. He's so angry, and then he's fighting Kraven. He's basically just helping MJ get to a place that he can actually try to save Peter. And you're seeing Peter die, and Harry's MJ's crying. Harry's just mad. He's like, you know, the typical stuff. It really reminded me of Spider-Man 3 in a way, when Harry was dying and Peter and MJ are right there, you know, crying. It was really cool. And what's cool about this scene is Peter's pretty much dead. Actually, Peter is dead. And then the symbiote just comes off of Harry and goes straight onto Spider-Man. And that is how Spider-Man gets the symbiote suit in this game, which is so cool because without the suit, he would actually be dead. Just how Harry would be dead without the suit. Because Harry's got cancer, which was spreading like crazy. The same type of cancer that killed Harry's mom. So this suit has not only saved Harry, but it also saved Peter in this game, which I thought was really cool. And when you get the suit, you can see how powerful this suit is, because you have a whole 5-minute scene of Spider-Man destroying these goons without getting hit. Or you are getting hit, but you're not taking any damage. It's really cool, really sick, and awesome. So freaking awesome. So while we're seeing Peter's story with the symbiote, we also get another storyline into this game with Miles Morales, because Spider-Man 2 is 2 playable Spider-Man. Insomniac's made it very clear that you're getting 2 Spider-Man stories into one game. It's not just called Spider-Man 2 because it's a sequel. It's Spider-Man 2 because you play as 2 different Spider-Mans, 2 different stories, that type of thing. So we're seeing a Miles Morales unique storyline with Mr. Negative. Mr. Negative escapes because Kraven's out there trying to get all these villains, because he's trying to find the ultimate test of somebody trying to kill him, basically. Trying to have him be hunted, basically. And so he goes after all Spider-Man's greatest enemies that he's locked up. And obviously, if you remember the last game, Mr. Negative killed Miles Morales' dad, Jeff, and this was before Miles became Spider-Man. So it's always been kind of awkward, and Miles Morales sees that Mr. Negative escaped, and it kind of has Miles Morales go down a dark path for a little bit, because he wants to make sure that Mr. Negative never does what he did to anybody else. In fact, he actually almost kills Mr. Negative. Or, I don't say kill, but he almost doesn't save Mr. Negative. He almost lets him drown. And if it wasn't for Kraven, he might have drowned. So, interesting storyline there. And throughout the whole game, we're seeing Miles go through this whole, I don't know what you would call it, but I guess it'd be anger towards Mr. Negative. And what's really cool about it at one point of the game is Kraven kidnaps Miles Morales and has Miles Morales and Mr. Negative fight each other. And it ends up being a really unique, cool boss fight that ends up with what appeared to be that Miles Morales was going to kill Mr. Negative, but ends up pushing him out, saving him from the Kraven lair, to getting him to get Spider-Man to come over to save him, which just shows the character development of Mr. Negative. And we're seeing this happen while this whole symbiote storyline is happening with Peter. I think it's cool that we're having these two storylines happening in this game, and it works perfect because you're playing as two different playable characters. Normally when you have so much storyline going on, it's kind of hard to do it, especially if you look at Spider-Man's history, particularly in the movies. I mean, we talked about Spider-Man 3, but Spider-Man 3 is kind of hated because of how much storyline is in that movie. There's so many plots, so many stories, and with Spider-Man 2, they have captured the game perfectly with how many storylines it has. And I love the Miles Morales, Mr. Negative duo that we see throughout the whole game, because you see the development of redemption right there. And we talked about redemption before, as we saw it with Tombstone, how he's not really a villain anymore. And we're seeing that with Mr. Negative. He regrets what he does, especially after learning more about Miles Morales. He starts to become more of a hero. He becomes more of his true self and regrets the things that he did in the last game. The forgiveness and redemption storyline that we see with this is incredible, and I think is a valuable lesson just in life for everyone in general. And it's really cool because it shocks Peter to see how Miles and Mr. Negative are able to be in the same presence without wanting to kill each other now. It was cool, and it showed Peter something that he learned from Miles himself that he didn't teach Miles. It showed Peter how much Miles is improving as a Spider-Man and as a person. Well, let's go back to Spider-Man using the symbiote. The way that the symbiote is portrayed into this game is absolutely amazing, especially when Spider-Man gets it. When you get it, you feel so powerful. And I think it is so great how they do this, because Web of Shadows, I feel like, is the only game to really do the symbiote really good in terms of being the symbiote, which is being overpowered. Spider-Man 2 does an incredible job of making you feel overpowered as being with the symbiote. And storyline purposes, it goes to show how well it's used, because not only are you so powerful, you are seeing Peter Parker change each time throughout the whole game while using the symbiote. And you can see that Peter is getting addicted off the symbiote like a drug, which basically that is what the symbiote kind of is in the way that Peter uses it in this game. Peter uses it as a way to be a better Spider-Man. Every time we see him trying to talk about the symbiote, he's always like, this makes me a better Spider-Man. He also uses the symbiote to kind of help with everything that he's got going on as Peter Parker. He doesn't really think about what's going on around him. Kind of like what a drug does. And I think it's really interesting if you look at Yuri Lowenthal's research on the symbiote and what he did to make sure that he was playing Peter Parker the right way with the symbiote on, is he did a lot of research on drug addiction, because I feel like the symbiote really is kind of like a drug addiction. It's an addiction, kind of like drugs, people that get addicted towards drugs, they will use that to, whatever reason they would use it for. Very similar to how Peter uses the symbiote. He gets addicted to it, he's changing as a person, he gets angry as a person. You see everything around him changing as he evolves in the symbiote, and he's getting worse and worse, different and different. It's portrayed amazingly into this game. I loved it. And not to mention, another MJ level happens when you're using the symbiote, where you get to see Mary Jane try to basically save Peter, but Peter's asleep and the symbiote is doing its own thing, which is an iconic moment from the comic books, where the symbiote's doing its own thing while Peter's asleep. And when this whole scenario happens in this whole MJ mission, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of scared. As a Spider-Man game, I never thought I could get scared at a Spider-Man game, but they actually made Spider-Man come across as a very scary character when he was asleep. This MJ mission was like a horror level, pretty much. it was awesome being able to play a Spider-Man game and for like 20 minutes being what was a horror section of the game. And you see Spider-Man want to kill MJ, which is crazy. Obviously, it's not Peter himself, it's the symbiote. But those two words, Spider-Man wanting to kill Mary Jane, that is crazy. And it is portrayed amazingly. Absolutely amazing. And we have to talk about the acting once again. One of these actors has to get an award for Best Acting in this game. The Game Awards is coming up, and I really hope that Yuri Lowenthal gets nominated as Best Actor, because he should win it, and he should definitely get nominated at the very least, because his performance in this entire game was amazing, especially as the symbiote. He basically played two characters, and he changed his voice with the symbiote. It was so good, man. So good. Yuri Lowenthal crushed it, man. Let's take a break from talking about the story. Let's talk about some of these awesome video game bosses that you have happen throughout the whole game with all these storylines that we were talking about. Obviously, we talked about Dr. Kirk Connors being the lizard, but one of the cool things about that is we actually get to fight the lizard. We also get into an awesome chase scene, chasing the lizard throughout all of New York. And you can see how frustrated the symbiote Spider-Man is in this. And it just goes to show how Peter is changing as a person, because the stuff that he says when fighting and chasing the lizard, you would never hear him say as the, Spider-Man. But the boss fight was so cool. I love the boss fights in this game because they actually changed a little bit of things up. They gave a health bar, which I am a fan of the health bar personally. It makes me plan ahead of what moves I want to use, this and that. I mean, I guess in ways it makes games easier, but I think from a UI standpoint, I think it's cooler. It makes more sense to have a health bar. But the lizard fight was so cool, especially the lizard chase scene. Probably one of the coolest things in the whole game, and once again, shows how great the PlayStation 5 is. You got Mr. Negative. We talked about that a little bit with Miles Morales' boss fight. That was really cool. Miles Morales fighting Mr. Negative, and then one point going into the negative world and doing a chase scene there, and then fighting him in the chase scene. Very cool, very original, very fun, and it just comes across very nice. We fight Kraven multiple times throughout the whole game, but when we're doing the Kraven fight as the symbiote Spider-Man, man, that felt great, because they also have the bell. Obviously, the symbiote is not good against sound. That's how you defeat the symbiote. And to have that be there in the game, that was pretty cool, because, I mean, I've played every Spider-Man game, but I don't remember having the symbiote. And, I mean, there's probably Spider-Man 3 this happened, but having sound be actually a weakness in the game when you're doing boss fights, I thought that was really cool and really unique. It actually gave you a challenge right there. And it was cool. It was such a cool boss fight. And then right after defeating Kraven, you get to have to fight Peter. So you switch characters. Miles has to fight symbiote Spider-Man, and it's Peter. And the dialogue between Miles and Peter through that boss fight was absolutely crazy, because Miles is just trying to save Peter. He's trying to get him off of the symbiote, because Peter has gone full-blown crazy with the symbiote. He's literally about to kill Kraven, and Miles is like, no, don't do it. And that's great, man. The dialogue between those two, it shows why the mentor friendship that they have, it's perfect. That's why it's great. That's why they've done such a good job with this version of these characters, because I don't know if the comics could have done this whole dynamic as well, because something that the comics didn't get to really do, like it exists, but not in the form of this, which is where Peter, Miles, and the symbiote in the same storyline, basically. And what I mean by that is them doing the symbiote stuff together at the same time, learning about the symbiote stuff at the same time. Obviously, when Miles learns about the symbiote, Peter already knows about it in the comics. We've never seen a team up of Peter and Miles going against the symbiote quite like this in the video games, let alone comics. It's never been done in video games. And it's kind of been done in comics, but not in this way, in this originality of the team up, because they aren't aware of what the symbiote actually is yet. And that's why I love this duo team up so much, because it opens the door to so many cool things since Miles has been on this journey this early, which I say it's this early, but it's really not, because Peter's already been Spider-Man for like 10 plus years. but it's still cool to see all these big moments happen with Miles learning with you as Peter Parker. I don't know how to explain it more than that. It might come across weird, but I think it makes things cooler and more original due to that reason, because Peter doesn't know anything about it, just like Miles doesn't know anything about it. But that boss fight ends with Peter getting the symbiote off, and it's very awesome how he takes the symbiote off, because it's a lot like Spider-Man 3, where Peter's at the Bell scene and he's ripping it off of him. You literally get to rip the symbiote off with the PlayStation 5 controller. It's so cool. It was... I know I keep saying it, but it was so awesome. This whole game was so awesome, and I can't believe it, because I had high expectations, but I didn't know I was gonna be like this high expectations with it. Like, this game is so good. The boss fight was great. The storyline between that was great because of the mentor. It ends with Peter getting the symbiote off of them, puts it in a tube. He thanks Miles. He thanks him so much, like he was like, I can't ever repay you for this. Thank you so much. And basically, Peter's calling everyone, apologizing, because in this game, he's kind of a jerk when he's got the symbiote. I mean, I think it was self-explanatory, because he's even a jerk to his best friend, Harry, which is gonna come back to bite him later on. But basically, he's going to Oscorp to destroy the symbiote, because that's what Dr. Kirk Connors tells him to do. And, well, as he's there to destroy the symbiote, Harry pops up and he's like, "Oh, you got the suit. I need it. Give it to me. I need the suit." Because that was the whole point of saving Dr. Kirk Connors, was to help get the suit off of Peter, to get it back on Harry, because Harry was dying without the suit. And, well, let's just say that Harry with his cane hits the little thing that's got the symbiote in it. It breaks, and Harry gets the symbiote and becomes Venom. Now, before we get into this whole Harry being Venom, it was a very controversial thing, because it wasn't revealed yet, but it was very clear that Harry was going to be Venom, and a lot of people were very disappointed that Eddie Brock was not going to be in the game as Venom, me included. I was actually pretty worried about this. As somebody that watched the Ultimate Spider-Man show, I was not a fan of what they did in the symbiote with that, which was Harry actually became Venom in that. I felt it did not work at all. It was disgusting. I was not a fan of it. I did not like it. It was not good. Not good at all. So when I realized that that's the approach that they were going with this game, I had my doubts. I was worried. My hype for the game actually died a little bit when they announced that it's not going to be Eddie Brock that's going to be Venom. That's when we all knew it was going to be Harry at that point. But Insomniac proved me wrong with the way that they used the symbiote throughout this whole game, of building Harry up the way that he was. And not to mention, they took the Amazing Spider-Man 2 storyline, which was Harry's dying, and basically made it good. That movie, a lot of the problems with that movie, they took that whole Harry storyline and made this into a good storyline, with combining with the symbiote, him needing the symbiote to live. It was great. And I guess all the frustration of that symbiote, because the symbiote's very unique, and we're going to get into why these symbiotes are unique in a few minutes in this Insomniac version of Spider-Man. But basically, once that symbiote lands on Harry, the symbiote's too far gone, and Harry becomes Venom. Yes. And then it doesn't stop there. You know, Spider-Man's knocked out, you expect to be Spider-Man, but no, Insomniac takes it even further. You get to play as Venom, escaping Oscorp Tower. What? And it is crazy. You got a whole SWAT team after you. You got so many people after you. You got so many things to destroy as Venom. It was so unexpected, because this is what people wanted. They really wanted a playable Venom, but we all knew it wasn't going to happen. There's no way that they're going to make playable Venom. And they made playable Venom happen. Very surprising, probably the most surprising thing of the whole game, because Insomniac kept that a secret. And on top of that, it's just a throwback to Ultimate Spider-Man. Ultimate Spider-Man, you got to play as Venom in that game. And I feel like we're going to get some sort of Venom game down the road, because there's no way they spent this mechanic just to have a 20-minute level. And the coolest part about this is we actually get to fight Kraven as Venom in Times Square. Very unexpected, and you get to see how mad Venom actually is at Kraven. Because Venom is basically saying things like, "You're the reason why we're separated," that type of thing. Because of like Kraven's whole desire of wanting to be killed. Venom was kind of blaming Kraven, and then later on was blaming Miles with the dialogue of how the symbiote's not with Peter right now. So, after an epic boss fight, a very easy boss fight because they're showing you how much more powerful Venom is with the symbiote after that bond with Peter. And yeah, very easy boss fight. Venom kills Kraven, which again, I wasn't expecting, in all honesty, especially just considering the history that I've seen with Marvel games and that type of stuff in terms of killing characters. Marvel doesn't like killing characters, and for Insomniac to be allowed to kill characters, I was surprised by that, especially with the already amount of growing characters they've already killed. A lot of big characters that they've killed within that in terms of their rogues gallery, but very cool nonetheless. I quickly want to talk about some other gameplay features that I thought have been really cool, which was the web swinging. You can tell that Insomniac Games has been really focusing on the web swinging. Each game you've seen major improvements with the web swinging. I feel like with the next Spider-Man game, it is going to be fully adaptive, fully crazy when it comes to the web swinging, because they're still updating the web swinging in ways that I never would have imagined. Even with the inclusion of the web wings, which has been amazing having that in the game, being able to do that throughout the whole New York City, absolutely amazing. Web wings has been great because you're going through New York way faster, and it feels like you're fast traveling without fast traveling for real. Like, I don't know, it's so cool having the web wings into that. A very, very unique feature. I also feel like the amount of suits that are in this game is really cool, especially some of the Miles Morales suits on there. You got a Wolverine-inspired one, Black Panther-inspired one, and all the Into the Spider-Verse suits that you have with Miles Morales is really cool too. In fact, we actually almost have every single movie adaptation suit in a Spider-Man game, which has never been done before. Now, we do have all the main Spider-Man movie suits into the game in terms of Tobey's outfit, both of Andrew's outfits are in the game. You got most of Tom Holland's suits. The one that I'm remembering that's been removed is the stealth suit, and then they also removed, for whatever reason, they removed Peter B. Parker's suit in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse from Spider-Man Selection. I don't know why they would have removed that, because I feel like that was one of the coolest suits in the game. But I have a feeling that Insomniac's going to add these suits later as DLC, maybe even free DLC. Because, yeah, we need all these suits. Like, at least some of these movie suits. Because we need a Spider-Man game where we can say that we have every movie suit. And we're like 2 suits away, 2 suits that already exist within the Spider-Man games. The last one, it should be very easy to get that into the game. But I believe that I saw there's like over 70 suits. Very cool suits for both Peter and Miles. Very awesome. And by the way, the Black Cat mission scene probably is my favorite mission throughout the whole game. Because once again, the way that they take that with the PlayStation 5, that one right there, that definitely took it to the limits with how many different scenes that you're in that game. You can tell Insomniac's history with Ratchet and Clank really helped that mission scene. It was very cool and very unexpected to see all the Marvel Easter eggs that we got with that, especially getting Doctor Strange and Wong mentioned in the ending of that mission. Not to mention the Marvel Easter eggs throughout the whole game. I mean, you literally see the Baxter building being built with the Fantastic Four logo almost been ready to fully painted and all that. Then you got the X Mansion in the game fully like destroyed, but you can see that it was the X Mansion, and I guess that does indicate that the Wolverine game is definitely going to be in the same universe. And I want to talk about the incredible side missions in this game, because these side missions really feel like that you are doing your part as the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I feel like the first Spider-Man game, there really wasn't enough of that in terms of side missions. Like, you had the Howard saving the pigeons, but nothing out there really felt like being like a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It felt like you were being a full-on superhero. And with Miles Morales, the game changed that also. There was more side missions with the Miles Morales game. I really liked that because it showed that you were the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And with Spider-Man 2, it updated what Spider-Man 1 failed at and what Miles Morales' game did amazing, which was the side missions. Because the side missions, there were so many incredible ones, a lot of sad ones too, especially the Howard one and finding the grandpa one. Man, that one was wow, that was crazy. But it was a really good side mission. I loved it, and I can't wait to see what they do with these side missions going forward, because I've seen everyone talk about how great the side missions have been with this game. All the side content with Spider-Man 2 has been great. You had the spider bots that I thought was interesting. You have the Mysterio missions that I thought was very interesting. You have the Prowler missions that were very interesting. Everything about this was very interesting. There was not one side mission that was like, God, this sucks, I really don't want to do this. A lot of them was actually fully interesting. It has me excited to see what the next Spider-Man game is going to bring in terms of side content, because it seems like it's just something that is getting better and better. It kind of feels like it's not side content at that point, in all honesty, with how great some of these side missions were to the story. Let's go back to the storyline once again. Obviously, we just got done with Venom being Harry, and we got to kill Craven, which is again very unexpected. But one of the craziest things about this adaptation of the symbiote is it is heavily inspired by the Donny Cates version of Venom. That whole story that Donny Cates created with Null, the whole symbiotes over there, very inspired. Absolute Carnage. Absolute Carnage was crazy. That was a really good comic book series. You guys should read that. But yeah, it was very inspired by that. And it sucks. I found out that Donny Cates didn't even get a credit. Like, in the credits, he's not listed, even though they're using his version. Like, the story is heavily inspired, heavily implied. I mean, even mentioned. Like, I'm surprised he didn't get any credit in the credits. That's kind of messed up. I don't know what happened with that, but Insomniac, that's probably your 1L with this game, is that right there. Once Harry kills Craven, he goes to his mom's grave and is like, what did I do? And the symbiote's basically manipulating him into hearing his mom's voice about healing the world, because that's what Peter and Harry's mission was been this whole game, at least Harry's mission, which is healing the world. So, healing the world means that they need to give everybody the symbiote because of how it made everybody feel good, you know, how Harry's still alive with it, how it helped Peter, saved his life. So, Harry and Venom come up with a plan to take over the world and make it a symbiotic world. Literally, the whole world is going to be, the whole Times Square in New York City, it's going to go full Web of Shadows, where it's the end of the world apocalypse, symbiotes everywhere. It was awesome and unexpected. Literally, the whole New York City, for a few missions, gets turned into, I don't even know how to describe it. It's an end of the world zombie apocalypse with symbiotes. Just like what Web of Shadows did, which was something I never expected a game to ever do again. Which was, that's what I wanted out of this game. That's what I want Marvel Spider-Man 2 to do. And I didn't think it was going to be possible. I didn't think anybody was going to do it. But you can tell that Insomniac Games, they know what people want. They have obviously played every Spider-Man game to do the type of stuff that they've already done with this game, because it feels like this game is a love letter to every Spider-Man game out there, because there's references to all of these games in terms of, like, you know, playable Venom. That's obviously a reference to Ultimate Spider-Man. The end of the world apocalypse being symbiotes, all that stuff is very obviously referencing Web of Shadows. I mean, there's even an Easter egg of Web of Shadows in one of the side missions, which is incredible. And throughout this, you're seeing Peter and Miles struggle with this because they don't have a symbiote suit. So they're going out there fighting symbiotes. And in all honesty, these parts of the levels, very difficult at one point, which it's incredible that they did that. That shows how important the symbiote was and how much an advantage you had with the symbiote. And these levels are very hard without the symbiote. And there's one boss fight, a very unexpected boss fight, that I literally had zero expectations for. You go to Aunt May's house to meet up with MJ because MJ, you hear Harry at MJ's house, and you run over there, and they're all sitting at the table, and then Harry straight up just gives the symbiote to MJ, and MJ becomes Scream. And you are fighting Scream. And Spider-Man versus Scream, with Scream being MJ, absolutely crazy with the dialogue that's being said between Peter and Scream, because Scream's talking about how, oh, it's always about you, never about me, da 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 da. Bro, and you can feel how upsetting it's hurting Peter. Like, you don't mean that. It's great, man. Because you can see that the comments are upsetting Peter, and as he has to hurt his loved one, like it was absolutely crazy. And to see that happen, once again, original storyline from Insomniac Games here, because that was something I did not expect at all, to have to fight MJ, and MJ being Scream. Just how you have to fight Peter as Miles. That so cool, man. So freaking cool. The boss fight was unique. The dialogue was so good. I love the boss fight so much. And it was extremely difficult because you have no symbiote suit. And at one point you do a level where you're trying to save, I believe you're at City Hall. And at City Hall, the symbiotes, that they just swarm Peter and Miles, and they all jump on Peter. They can't do anything about it. They talk about that Peter might have a little bit of the symbiote still in him. And when the symbiotes jump on him, they're giving him the symbiote again. And Miles is doing his best to save him, but he can't do anything because they're all being swarmed by symbiotes. And then somebody unexpectedly comes to save the day, and that's Mr. Negative. And Mr. Negative and Miles enter the body of Peter Parker to try to get that little piece of symbiote that's still in him out of him through Mr. Negative's powers. So you're seeing Mr. Negative and Miles team up, and that's where you learn more about Mr. Negative and how he regrets everything, where Miles also talks about things about him, and you can see Mr. Negative's relationship with Miles grow, and you can see that forgiveness, or I don't even know if forgiveness is the right word here, but you can see that hatred is going away. And at the end of the whole mission, you see Mr. Negative and Miles teaming up together to save Peter, and then by the end of it, they basically just dab it up. Miles is like, "Hey, I can't forgive you, but I can't feel like this anymore. Let's just dab it up, brother." And they dab up, and it was powerful, man. It was powerful. It was incredible. I loved that whole Miles Morales storyline because they saved Peter, and like I said, Peter was surprised by Miles to be able to do that. And when they saved Peter, this was also an unexpected story element. I mean, it makes sense for them to do it, but I just wasn't expecting it. Anti-Venom suit. We get the anti-Venom suit once Mr. Negative goes into Peter Parker's... I mean, that's kind of how the suit's made anyways. But it was something that I did not expect. But I guess it should have been obvious. But I didn't expect the anti-Venom suit to be here and to be part of the main story. And once you get it, you basically have the symbiote again. Except it's not doing what it was doing before, and you're back to being powerful. But we can't just leave it with that. You know, Miles Morales had to get a new suit himself, so when they meet up again, and Miles Morales has his own original suit. Yeah, no. I mean, everyone's making fun of this suit. I hate it, too. Especially knowing that it's not even going to be the official suit. It's literally just a suit for a brand deal. It is a Adidas brand deal. We are never going to see this suit again. So it's annoying because this suit came out of nowhere and it was just this whole big thing. And then the next Spider-Man game, it's probably just going to be just the original Miles Morales suit. So like, it's annoying. But the cool thing is you can change these suits at any point. But for me, I'm always one of those people that have to use the suit that's being used in the game, because part of me knows like I'm supposed to be playing the game with that suit. So I never swapped the suits. But yeah, that suit was horrible. And I think it could have been good. There's just some weird choices that they do with it. It might have been just... Actually, no, it's not because of Adidas. That was random that Adidas wanted to sponsor the suit and like force it into... I don't know. It was weird. Did not... That's probably another like second Insomniac Dale right there. We're going to jump into the final level of this game. Because the final level of this game I thought was absolutely crazy again. You get to see Venom with wings happen out of nowhere. We're jumping through it. They basically, Miles, Spidey, MJ, we're all teaming up to basically get the rock, the same rock that Noel had with the symbiotes. Because that rock, once you destroy it, all the symbiotes are going to go away, all that type of stuff. So they team up to get that rock, and they get it out of there. And then all of a sudden, when Spider-Man gets Venom out of there, they're fighting it out, all that stuff. Venom pulls out wings just like the Donny Cates series, looking exactly like what was shown in the Donny Cates books, which was absolutely, again, shocking because that run is pretty recent. I mean, Donny Cates' Venom run was in 2018, the same year that the first Insomniac Spider-Man game to come out happened. So I really never expected to see his run used in media, like movies, games, that type of stuff, until, I want to say, a little bit later. But it's still cool nonetheless to see it this early. Well, I say that's a pretty early, but that is kind of a long time. That's 5 years ago, so that actually was a long time ago. So I guess it makes sense that it's starting to be used in other things now. But it ends up being a very awesome boss fight as the final level between Spider-Man and Miles fighting Venom. Just how the game shows it, where you're playing as two Spider-Man, you get to fight the final boss as two Spider-Man. And I think what's really cool how they end the boss fight is that it's actually Miles Morales defeating Venom. And the reason why I say this is cool is because we're going to get into it later about what makes the ending so special. But keep that in mind, remembering that Miles Morales is the person that defeats Venom. The boss fight happens. It's a good 30 minutes of dialogue, powerful dialogue, and Peter Parker has to do something that he did not want to do, that he dreaded doing, that he did everything in his power not to do after everyone telling him it was going to have to be done. After losing Aunt May, he didn't want to lose somebody else again, let alone him be the one to do it. But he has to kill Harry to get rid of the symbiote and to end it all. And you think that he kills him, but he actually doesn't. He quote-unquote kills him, but then Miles uses the electricity powers to save Harry's life, and Peter doesn't have to lose Harry anymore. Now, granted, he's not talking, and it'll be a few years till he starts talking again, but it's been done. He didn't have to lose somebody else, just like he lost Aunt May. Norman Osborn's not happy about it. He's actually very upset about it. You see the frustration out on the game. Towards the game, you see him happy and then later angry. I guess symbolizing what's going to be happening with the Green Goblin. Which is interesting. Everything that's happening through the Insomniac games in terms of the villains has all been because of Harry Osborn. In some sort of way, Harry Osborn is the reason behind this going bad. Kind of like, how Doc Ock, he's the villain. He became the way he did because of Norman Osborn. The symbiote's here because of Norman Osborn. Harry Osborn has the symbiote because of Norman Osborn. I think that's just kind of showing a pattern of what's to come, especially with Spider-Man 3, where the true villain of the whole series was actually Norman Osborn. But you can see that he's very angry about this. He starts to have very angry frustration towards Spider-Man because he tells him not to do it before all of it happens, and he ends up doing it anyways to save the world, basically. Or I guess you could say heal the world. But we time skip into the world healing after what is a alien invasion, and MJ starts a podcast. That's her new job. Peter actually retires he's not done, but the game has him retire as Spider-Man because he's just done with it. You can see how much it was hurting him. He's lost his job. He's lost his friend. He's had so much going on. The symbiote showed him. I think he revealed a lot of himself when the symbiote got onto him with the stuff that he was saying. It was very stressful with everything he got going on. He couldn't keep a job. And what he really wanted to do was that Emily May Foundation project that Harry offered him. And he's starting his own Emily May Foundation while Harry's in the hospital. He's starting it in Aunt May's garage. And he tells Miles that if he needs him, it's around the corner, but he needs to do this. And Miles is like, hey, I'm good, I got this. And it's basically Peter passing the torch to Miles, which I think the way it was done was super cool. And obviously he's gonna come back in the next Spider-Man game. But I do think with the way that Insomniac's taking the storyline, I do think the next Spider-Man game, Spider-Man 3, I don't know if they're doing Miles Morales 2 or if Spider-Man 3 is going to be Miles Morales. I don't know. The next Spider-Man game where Peter Parker is in, at least, it's definitely going to be his last. I don't know if they're going to kill him. I mean, they played around with that idea, so maybe they'll do that. But I do think the next Spider-Man game that Peter Parker's in will be his last. And that'll probably be whenever the Green Goblin comes out. Because in the end credits, you get Norman Osborn, hinting that they might be teaming up with Doc Ock. I don't know. We'll see. A lot of people think Superior Spider-Man storyline is going to happen. I don't think that storyline is going to happen anytime soon. Because, yeah, they're going to need more Spider-Man games to pull that off. And we also, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much, but, you know, it looks like we're getting Silk in the game, too, as Spider-Man 3. So Miles Morales might be the one training her rather than Spidey. It's really cool. You're seeing Miles Morales be the Spider-Man now, because now it's just one Spider-Man. That's Miles Morales. Now, I've talked a lot about this game. Probably a lot of people are asking me, which do you like better, Max? You talked a lot about Web of Shadows. You said that this is your favorite game, but you've also been talking a lot about Spider-Man 2, the moments that you felt were incredible, what made the game so special, and I think finally, after 15 years, I have a new favorite game, and that is Spider-Man 2. I never in a million years thought something was going to beat Spider-Man Web of Shadows. I've played so many games, so many great games, I should say. And listen, I hope it doesn't come across that I didn't like the other Insomniac Spider-Man games. I think every Spider-Man game that Insomniac has made has been great. It just never got better than Web of Shadows for me, except for this, Spider-Man 2. This is the best Spider-Man game out there. Obviously, it would be really cool if you could go back to the symbiote world at any time to free roam that, since like everywhere you looked there were symbiotes, just how Web of Shadows did it. But this game, me personally, I had no problems with. I know there's what people are talking about online, they have their own problems. I'll probably be the only one to give this a 10 out of 10, but this game is a 10 out of 10 and it's probably my game of the year. It's definitely my favorite game of all time, so I don't think there's going to be any other game that beats that in terms of my game of the year. I'm excited to see what Insomniac does with the future of Spider-Man, especially with their Wolverine game that's coming out in a few years. That might be coming out next year. And Insomniac did a great job. I mean, they did such a great job that I broke my Nintendo rule, which is doing a game, doing a non-Nintendo game. I did that today, a PlayStation game. So if you guys enjoyed this video, I don't know how long it ended up being, but I really wanted to talk about this because Spider-Man, like I said, it means so much to me. I went to every movie night of Spider-Man opening weekend, if not opening night, ever since I've been born. So Spider-Man, it just means so much to me, and to be able to do a Spider-Man video on this channel actually means a lot to me. Even though this video I know is not going to do well, it still means a lot to me that I was able to do this, because I know that when I go back on my channel when I'm old, I'm going to look back at this video and be like, I'm so glad I did that video, because Spider-Man, the character, means so much to me, and I don't get to talk about why it means so much to me. And in this video I got to talk a little bit about that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little video of me fanboying over Spider-Man 2 and how it's a great game, the elements behind what made it such a great game, because this is such a good game, and you guys need to play it if you have not played it yet. Make sure to backslash that subscribe button, like the video, check out my Twitter, check out my Instagram, check out the Discord server. I think I already said that. Make sure to check out everything that's in the description below, and I will see you guys in the next video.